After years of fear, uncertainty, and doubt from banks, regulators, and mainstream media, the winds are shifting for cryptocurrency and new sails are being set, which are about to cast Bitcoin and much of the cryptocurrency market straight to the moon. Now, the Nasdaq stock market, the American Stock Exchange, second in the world by market capitalization only to the New York Stock Exchange, is detailing to the world 5 reasons why Bitcoin is not in a bubble in a new article that they've published. And it's not just because they're reiterating what we've been saying on this channel for a long time, but we have to say their article makes a lot of sense. So what does this Nasdaq article mean for Bitcoin adoption? What does it mean for legal acceptance in distressed economies? And why does everyone keep mentioning that the total Bitcoin supply is limited to 21 million Bitcoins? Let's discuss. Hey everybody, I'm Gary Palmer Jr., you're you, and together, welcome to Minting Coins. So it's just exciting what's going on. People are loving and freaking out about Bitcoin reaching new all-time highs, hitting 6,300, 6,300 plus, going up, going down, really being supported at a solid support level over $6,000 as the trading is fluctuating and things are volatile and people are just anticipating big things to come. There's a lot happening inside the market. There's a lot happening in the news. We're hearing about Bitcoin and blockchain technology more and more in the mainstream media. But as opposed to before, when all of this was really focused around the negative sayings and the fears and the uncertainties of the situation stemming from the banks and the regulators, we're starting to hear so many different tunes, and we're starting to see big ships cast big sails, and there's big money headed in this direction. People are going whale hunting, and whales are going to be going cryptocurrency hunting as they seek just to really benefit from the waves of money and currency, debt, fiat that is going to be barreling in to the cryptocurrency blockchain space. So in today's news, we have this article coming out of Nasdaq, and this Nasdaq article is really making an excellent case why Bitcoin is not a bubble and why really the sky may not even be the limit of what is happening and the revolution of change that is upon us. So with that being said, let's take a quick peek at the market, see where we are at this point of time in the world, and take a look at the news, and then let's discuss. Okay, starting over here at coinmarketcap.com, living in a world, the total current market capitalization is $177 billion, 24-hour trading volume, $4.8 billion. Bitcoin dominance still over that 57% mark. You know, by the time you're watching this video, any of these numbers can be double or half. But it's just for prosperity to see where we are at this moment of time. The Bitcoin market capitalization is all the way up to $101 billion per Bitcoin price, $6,086. And people are expecting to see this go way, way higher as so much more money enters the space. And so if we go as we are now, let's just do a little thought experiment. If this was to 10x you know, we can go from $100 billion to that $1 trillion. People can sort of see how we can go from this $6,000 to this $60,000. And even now, where people are wondering if $6,000 is a lot, or if it's going to be going just all the way up to $10,000, I think people are recognizing that even $10,000 may be an extreme deal, an extreme discount when you look at it from the price perspective of the 2020 future or the 2021, or who knows, the way that this is going, people could look back at a $10,000 Bitcoin in 6 months and 10 months and a year from now and just wish that they could have gotten Bitcoin at $7,000 or $8,000, because as we know, there's a lot of people who would wish they could buy Bitcoin at $3,000. That doesn't look like that's going to happen anytime soon. So looking at some memes over at Reddit, we have some relevant stuff today. So we have this Bitcoin up here, this Bitcoin price at $4,000, and we have this Bitcoin guy on a bicycle, and we have this stick here. It's a rod. It says Bitcoin is a fraud, and then Bitcoin price drops to $3,000, and Bitcoin as a fraud rod goes into the tire. And what's going to happen when you take that rod and you stick it into the tire? Well, in the case of Bitcoin as a fraud, that just breaks and Bitcoin just keeps on going, and now we're breaking that $6,000 price. No matter what people are saying, no matter what people are doing, no one's stopping this bicycle. It's like a bicycle train, and this bicycle train is going to get turned into a rocket ship at some point. Speaking of buyers, speaking of sellers, speaking of traders and holders, we have this Calvin and Hobbes comic where they say, "Hey, Hobbes, what you doing?" "Nothing. Nothing at all." "Nope. I'll help." And this is how holders help. Holders help by helping each other hold. You just buy what you believe in, you hold on to it, and as the markets are going up, the markets are going down, you're not getting in the way of the distractions that are seeking to get in the way of your decisions. Because, for everybody overall, this market is going up. The same things have happened a year ago when Bitcoin price was going up and everyone was buying into Bitcoin and people were selling all their altcoins. And after everyone sold all their altcoins and they went back into Bitcoin, well, then the rest of the cryptocurrency market exploded. And while the price of Bitcoin stayed relatively the same, we saw Dash increase and we saw Ethereum increase from $10 to $300, from $20 to $400. And we saw that over and over again. Litecoin going from $4 to $40 to where it is now, $50, $60. And people are just wondering or expecting these things to pop into these things to continue increasing and blowing up. We've talked about Ethereum Classic and the potential of Ethereum Classic to swell in value exponentially as the total supply of the Ethereum Classic is limited to 230 million as their Ethereum Classic investment trust through Grayscale and the Digital Currency Group and Barry Silbert, as that picks up steam, as they continue moving the Ethereum Classic down the line of the Internet of Things. It's going to be really interesting to see all of these different high-level blockchains increase in their value after we get through all of this forking around with Bitcoin, which probably isn't going to happen until, I would say we'd see more of a substantial shift in January, but I'm just basing that off what we saw last year and looking at the sort of past behaviors in order to understand the future behaviors. That's typically how I go about, trying to figure things out. Speaking of buyers and holders and predictors, let's see what Tim Draper has to say. Let's see what Tim Draper has to say 3 years ago.
Faster money creates a better economy, and I believe that whichever governments recognize this and see Bitcoin as a big opportunity are the ones who are going to really benefit from this.
So this is Tim Draper 3 years ago saying whichever governments see this opportunity, whichever governments get on this opportunity are going to be the governments and the nations and the places in the world that are going to gain the greatest benefit of the Bitcoin and the blockchain technology and the market capitalization that will come into their nations, the technological advancements that will come into their nations, all of the volatility and influx of energy and talent and growth is going to be really beneficial for the places in the world that start to accept this, which is what we're seeing in Russia, what we're seeing in Japan, what we're seeing in Australia. And maybe, just maybe, we may be seeing the very early rumblings of this within the United States as well.
Okay, so let me just reiterate. You're saying Bitcoin will be worth about $10,000 per coin in about 3 years. Right now, just so our viewers know, it stands at $413.
So 3 years ago when Bitcoin was 400 and so dollars, this woman thinks Tim Draper is crazy because he's saying by the end of 2018, Bitcoin could reach as high as $10,000. And at this point, maybe it's a little bit crazy because Bitcoin's only $6,000. So we have 2 months to reach another $4,000. And I'm asking, do you think that's possible? Do you think that we can jump up that much additional market capitalization into Bitcoin to increase another $4,000? Especially around the holiday season? It's going to be really interesting, if he's going to be exactly right or very close to being right, but he is nonetheless pretty close indeed.
Per Bitcoin. Long way to go. I want to.
And I know you're going to come back and test me on this because we talked a year.
So yeah, so that's a lot of fun. That'll be really interesting to see the update of this video when that comes to happen. And so that's Tim Draper, billionaire, venture capitalist, angel investor, really ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, has purchased the Silk Road Ross Ulbricht 30,000 Bitcoin way back when they were about $600 a piece. So he's definitely goo-goo or cuckoo and goo-goo for, gaga about Bitcoin, and just heavily invested in the space. Other people that are heavily invested in the space are Nasdaq and the Nasdaq private market that Nasdaq owns, and the Nasdaq private market, which also owns and runs the Bitcoin Investment Trust through the Digital Currency Group and Grayscale. Grayscale, which also manages the Ethereum Classic Investment Trust that we mentioned a second ago. Digital Currency Group heavily invested into the space. Digital Currency Group owns Grayscale. They own CoinDesk. They have investments in Coinbase as well. And so there's a lot happening in terms of Nasdaq and Nasdaq's ownership and Nasdaq's position inside Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space, as we talked about extensively in a couple of videos in the past. So now what we have is Nasdaq releasing this article here, which is just a great article. And this article in the news is talking about 5 reasons why Bitcoin is not in a bubble. And so it's just most interesting. This is a well-written article. This is a very interesting article, lays out a great case for why Bitcoin is not in a bubble, why this is just the early potential of where Bitcoin and blockchain technology is going in the cryptocurrency space. But this article is from Nasdaq.com. So this talks about, it goes on to talk about, the background of Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin has very different fundamentals than the early internet stocks, which people compare Bitcoin and blockchain technology to, the dot-com burst and the crumbling of the early internet companies. They're saying that Bitcoin has very different fundamentals than those early internet companies. For example, they just can't print essentially a limited number of stock options. And Bitcoin is limited to that 21 million Bitcoins, among other things. So because of these other things, because of these different fundamentals that Bitcoin offers, there's a much more promising growth trajectory that Nasdaq is informing its audience. And so the first reason they have on this list is the growing acceptance of Bitcoin as legal tender, and its growing acceptance by lawmakers and financial regulators all across the world. And because of that, and because of people's natural understanding of Bitcoin and the growth of the Bitcoin ecosystem, Bitcoin's official acceptance is definitely on the rise. We see that legally through regulators and through merchants in Russia and Japan and Australia. We were talking about that earlier. 2017 in April there, Japan announced that it was officially accepting Bitcoin as a payment method. Citizens in the Philippines are using it for local remittances. And even countries like Australia and Russia have made similar statements that are leading Bitcoin to be, while maybe to some degree regulated, accepted as a medium of exchange for people to have transactions and accept Bitcoin into the country and be able to convert that Bitcoin and those cryptocurrencies into actual things of value like food and electricity and water. The second reason on this list here is the increasing merchant adoption. And this is connected with the regulation. We have companies across the world like Microsoft and Overstock, which are some of the largest companies to accept Bitcoin payments. People are anticipating the use of Bitcoin, Litecoin, Ethereum payments possibly through the juggernaut that is Amazon. And when that happens, that's definitely going to be huge news for the space. I'm sure Amazon's, putting themselves in the position to take advantage of that situation from both a technological perspective, but also, an investment strategy, acquisition, perspective as well, I'm sure. There's got to be a lot of companies talking to Amazon about that. So as more and more merchants adoption grows globally, then there's going to be more regular use of the digital currency, more stable demand of the cryptocurrency, and given the low rate of merchant adoption, currently there's substantial room for growth as acceptance becomes even greater from the first point in the article of regulation and whatnot. So the third point in this article is that Bitcoin is increasingly acting as a store of wealth in distressed economies. I would say it's increasingly acting as a store of wealth in all economies. We see more and more wealthy individuals all across the world who are understanding of Bitcoin and blockchain technology and are putting a percentage of their wealth into Bitcoin and blockchain technology, let it be 10% or more. Where people are recognizing the potential of Bitcoin to provide that value of which they currently seek for in dollars, which don't always work really well, or they seek for in gold, which also doesn't work really well. And Bitcoin is something that works really, really well for all levels of world on this planet. And so the Bitcoin trading volumes, as some of us obviously recognize, are negatively correlated with the performance of local currencies and economic growth, especially in distressed areas. I think they're also negatively correlated with the performance of currencies, even in regions that aren't distressed. It's just the percentage of that growth may be smaller, but it's just to say that while distressed areas may be experiencing hyperinflation, if you're in America or Europe or somewhere with a fiat currency, then your fiat currency is still experiencing that inflation, let it be 1% or 2%. It's just maybe not that hyperinflation like you're experiencing in so many places across the world. Number 4 is sort of a dream inside a dream, where we have a mainstream, sort of organization talking about or questioning if Bitcoin has just gone mainstream. I think that the fact that we're reading this article on Nasdaq sort of answers that question. But this person is saying that most people have at least heard about Bitcoin, and that many people even know that 1 Bitcoin is worth more than 1 ounce of gold. And if you didn't know that, well, then you know that now because you just read that at Nasdaq.com. And you could just tell your friends, it's like a good talking point, I suppose. The value of Bitcoin is more than 1 ounce of gold. And there's less Bitcoin in this world than the amount of gold that you can buy, especially since gold has paper derivatives, which is a lot different than an actual Bitcoin on a Bitcoin blockchain. So now that Bitcoin has become mainstream, as we talked about, this really opens the doors, all of these things, stacked on top of each other with the legal acceptance, with the merchant adoption, with the store of wealth and the technology, with Bitcoin going mainstream. This is creating huge, and that's an understatement, huge potential from new investors to come in, especially the potential of institutional investors is incredible. And once that starts to open up, we can see the current 0.1 trillion market cap of Bitcoin alone go to 1.1 trillion or higher. I think people are definitely expecting that. People are definitely excited for that. And exponentially speaking, it's not out of the realm of possibility for us to see that in the next 12 months or so, especially with a couple easy developments like a Bitcoin ETF, some of these Bitcoin futures tradings that are talking about putting on the Chicago Stock Exchange. A lot of things happening. A lot of people are excited. There's a lot of you know, a lot of money in the water, if you will. So last but not least on this list, we have the total Bitcoin supply. And so this is what a lot of people keep on talking about. This is one of the two aspects of the Bitcoin blockchain technology that we always talk about. First of all, that the Bitcoin token, the Bitcoin asset, is limited to 21 million Bitcoins. There's never going to be more than that. And then the second aspect being that the blockchain technology is peer-to-peer. And this is the first time that any two people across the world can exchange value, can exchange trust, without requiring a third-party intermediary to sort of manage that trust, to manage that relationship. You know, just like the internet, just like the telephones. But, you know, when we had to go through AT&T to do a long-distance call from one city over, we were then able to call people across the world at just the cost of connecting through the internet. And now is the first time with the Bitcoin and blockchain technology, it's peer-to-peer. We can exchange that trust without a third party. That's very important to understand about Bitcoin and blockchain technology. But the second aspect to understand that's very important about Bitcoin is that there's never going to be more than 21 million. And here's another example where this is very, very important, and people are talking about that, and Nasdaq is talking about that, this extreme limitation, and how this extreme limitation is increasing in the support for Bitcoin to have the potential to go so much higher than where we currently are. And it's not just that the total supply of Bitcoins is limited to 21 million Bitcoins. It's also that the releasing of new Bitcoins, because there's about 16.6 million Bitcoins out there right now, right? Where are we at? 16.6? We have to be 16.7 soon. Well, with the 16.6 million Bitcoins that are out there right now, the new supply that's going to be coming out is going to be decreasing and decreasing and decreasing every 4 years. So right now there's 12.5 Bitcoins that are released every 10 minutes. Well, in about, 3 years, 2.5 years, there's only going to be 6.25. And then 4 years after that, there's only going to be about, 3 and, 0.125 Bitcoins. And so it's going to be forever decreasing, fewer and fewer available. And that psychology, that dynamic, that element of fact is going to contribute to the exponential rise of the Bitcoin value over time. We keep on talking about 2020, but 2024 is going to be exponentially even more crazy than 2020. People keep on talking about $1 million Bitcoin. At some point, people are going to start talking about a $10 million Bitcoin. That's going to blow everybody's mind. But that is the potential. If you were able to have a couple of these, if you were capable through all the future events that will be happening to hold on to one of these Bitcoins 20 years later, you might be able to buy 10 houses. Or 0. You can all go to 0 tomorrow. Not financial advice. I hate that I have to say that, but it is what it is. So the discussion of whether Bitcoin is in a bubble or not is going to continue going on and on and on. People are going to continue with this FUD. When Bitcoin is $500,000, it might drop to $100,000 before going up to $750,000. The swings are going to be greater, more than likely, because people are going to want to, trick other people into buying low and selling high, so other people can sell high and buy low. And you need to recognize that those situations are going to be occurring because those situations have always been occurring. They will continue to be occurring. And to that degree, it's definitely important to understand how markets work to that degree or to some degree, because even if you're a holder, it's still important to recognize, how these markets go up and how these markets go down. And when you are at least buying in or when you are holding versus buying. Very, very interesting. And so there's a major difference why Bitcoin and internet stocks are completely different. There's major differences why Bitcoin and Ethereum and Bitcoin and a lot of these other cryptocurrencies are completely different. That's without even getting to all these different hard forks. But if you're just buying and holding long term, then let's just say you don't even have to worry about that. And it's a really, really interesting time. People are getting crazy. We have this guy getting crazy. This guy's going straight to the moon. This guy's off the chain. This guy's off the earth. This guy's all Ethereum all the time, I think. Or it's the CEO of Nasdaq, right? Probably not. All right. So if you like this video, hit that like button. If this provided you any value, I encourage you to come, be part of the community. Either comment here with on YouTube, comment on Steemit. Feel free to join us at mintingcoins.com. Feel free to make a membership, and if you're interested in becoming a member, if you're one of the first 500 or so members, if you'd like a free membership, we can definitely update you and increase you to a full membership. Just helping people learn about what's happening, helping people connect with the news, helping people connect with the truth of how the world is changing, how technology is changing, how responsibility is changing, and how you can get a better control of your future by understanding what is it to learn about, where are these points to start your learning, where are the aspects of the new responsibility that you want to be personally accountable for. Because these are your decisions, not decisions of central banks. These are your decisions, not decisions of, your local credit union. These are your decisions, not anyone else's control, not anyone else's responsibility. And in exchange for that, you get to be part of this world. You get to be a true member. You get to be a peer connected to other peers in a world of decentralized, open source, information, communication, and publishing. So I'd love to know what you think. Comment below about the Nasdaq and any of the Nasdaq points. Comment about Bitcoin going mainstream, or the total limitations of Bitcoin, the merchant adoptions of Bitcoin, what's happening with Bitcoin spreading through the world, and as we see the increasing global acceptance of the Bitcoin all around the world. These are definitely changing times, and it's just encouraging to talk about this information and just to really explore what it means for you and where you live in the world. So with that being said, we have more videos on the way. We're coming up with some really exciting content and really exciting developments in the blockchain business overall. And we're excited to share all of that with you. Until next time, I'm glad that together we are minting coins.